Hello and welcome to Awaken Empowered TV. I'm your host, Ethann Fox. Today I'm joined again by James Gilliland, who was with me a couple of months ago. And on that show, we focused specifically about his background and experience and really about extraterrestrial races and consciousness and dimensions and so on. This time, I wanted to follow up a little bit with him and catch up with him now that he's had his conference and speak more specifically about some things that took place at the conference and also some topics that he last time was not able to share with us that I'm hoping this time he can go into a little bit more detail. So stay tuned for that. If you did miss the last episode with him, then just do a search on YouTube for Ethann Fox and James Gilliland, and you'll find that, or just go to youtube.com/AAE EXPO, and you'll find that interview there as well. And so if you don't know much about James, then that would be the best place to start and then continue with this one afterward. And now, without any further delay, let's bring James onto the show. Thank you, James, for joining me for another episode of Awaken Empowered TV. I'm looking forward to speaking with you about some of the subjects we sort of started touching on last time, but that hoping we have a little bit more clarity on this time. In particular, I wanted to start with when we talked last time off camera, we discussed some of the things happening between the Chinese and the U.S. governments and the Federal Reserve and potential takeover and so on. So could you talk a little about that? Have there been more developments? Anything you can discuss pertaining to that?
You know, there has. I was just actually getting ready to get another update from a friend of mine that's in the know to kind of double check it and see where he's at with it. But I have been talking to some of the highest sources on this, the ones that actually have the ability to move the gold, to back the new treasury notes and all the other things that are in place. And also the people that are actually doing the paperwork for the global reset and, all the other things that people have been talking about are in place. And so I have that from some pretty high authorities that's been done. The paperwork's in. They've pretty much taken over control of the World Court and the Federal Reserve and the IMF, and all those things are starting to fall into the hands of a more benevolent group, you might say. And I know the Chinese grandfathers, the ones that are on the light side of things, realize that this money, this massive amount of gold, has to be used for humanitarian purposes. They are a little upset about, there's a lot of people that are saying they represent the grandfathers, or they represent this group, this Dragon Society, that Dragon Society. And some of the information coming out where they're actually saying, hey, come join us, for a certain amount of money, we'll set you up and you'll get $1 bazillion and you can buy your new boat and your new Mercedes and your new beach house and whatever. It doesn't work that way. And it's funny because it's amazing whenever there's a large amount of funds that could be available, it really draws out the worst in a lot of people. And that's sad. But even the people that were not doing anything, for humanity in the past, all of a sudden became humanitarians, because they want to get their fingers on the cash, So it's like, what were you doing in the past, to help, turn the planet around, And so it's kind of sad, but that's all being weeded out, and they're making sure that the funds don't go into the wrong hands and don't get siphoned off like they have in the past, for other, projects that aren't, in the highest best good of humanity. So there's a lot of jockeying going on right now. A lot of things are in place. The process can't be stopped. I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold. I don't think anybody does, but I think the cabal are like in their death throes as far as continuing with this war and disease profiteering program and the Archon network, or everybody has a different name for it. It's like the Illuminati controlled bankster Archon network system, So that whole system is collapsing in on itself, and it's just not frequency specific to the shift that's happening. That's the most simplest terms I can explain it.
And what are some of your sources that you're getting this information, and how do you know they're reliable sources?
That's a good one. Now this is a real catch-22 because I've talked to the people on the highest level, and you can say, well, how do you know you even talked to that person? It's like, I'm very discerning myself, and I hear all these stories. This is going to happen, that's going to happen. I go, okay, well, we'll see. There's an old saying, what like the blind man said, we will see. So anyway, so it's I've checked and double checked with other sources that I have to see if these guys are who they say they are. And they are. And also there's an inner knowingness that when you tap into some of these people, the energy signatures they have are just off the scale. I mean, your whole body starts vibrating. You start seeing lights. And if you're sensitive, you just go, who are these people? I mean, they're very, very powerful people. And so, like I always tell people, praise God or praise Allah, tie your camel. It's like, don't sit around and wait for all these funds to come down. What are you doing now? Get busy now, cover yourself now, get aligned with, the awakening healing process now, and do what you can now and shift, break away from the beast, serving the beast and working for the beast. Find a vocation or a job that is service oriented, that's helpful and to humanity and the earth, that supports this process. And I think everything will be fine, because that's where things are shifting. That's where they're moving. But if you continue to work for a corrupt system that's very harmful to humanity, the earth, or just deals with extortion and corruption and things like that those systems are going to implode. They're going to collapse in on themselves. So if you're serving the beast, you're going to go down with the beast. It's that simple. And that's the best advice I can give to people is, look at your life with brutal honesty. Who are you working for? What are you doing? Are you part of the war industry? Are you part of the disease profiteers? Are you part of the pollution that's going on? What are you doing? Who are you working for? And get real clear with that, because that the ill-gotten gain is going to have a karmic backlash, basically.
So what's the ultimate purpose of all this? I mean, is it to take over the Federal Reserve? Or I mean, what's the goal of all of this, all of these things that you're talking about?
Well, the Federal Reserve's totally insolvent. And so is the United States of America Corporation, Inc. That's totally insolvent too right now. And they've written checks they can't cash. There's no way they can continue in the process they're doing. So basically what's happening is, because they owe these extreme debts, there's other people that are coming in and taking over the debts and say, okay, you're out, we're taking control. It's the same thing with the money system. If you print a whole bunch of money, it's supposed to be insured and backed by a certain amount of gold. And there's processes involved in that. Well, if you don't make your payments and all of that, then those guys can step in and say, okay, look, you didn't make your payments. And so, we're basically foreclosing on this whole situation. And I'm probably not using the exact terms correctly or whatever, but that's basically what's going on, is that the banksters and the people that have just been doing the runaway printing of money and all the inflationary thing, all the other things they've been involved in, are now at a head, and it's going to all collapse in on themselves if somebody else doesn't step in and just say enough, and reset the system. And that's basically what's going on.
So I assume you've heard of the Swiss Indo, right? Have you heard?
Yeah.
Okay. And it turned out that was all, it didn't actually work out in the end, all of the ideas behind that. So how do we know that this particular initiative that you're talking about, and all the individuals behind it, are legitimately trying to create positive change, and that it isn't just another, I don't want to say a scam, but something that doesn't necessarily pan out like we're being led to believe?
I've always, going into this, I've always, thought that as a possibility. It's like I've always been real discerning through this whole thing. And all the indicators and what I've seen and the other information I've been getting is all adding up to it is legit. And I always tell people, when you're going to see it, when it's really legit, is when you see two things happen. One, you see an end of the chemtrails, and the other thing is you're going to see treasury notes coming out of the ATMs, instead of Federal Reserve notes, and those will be kind of phased out because they're pretty much worthless anyway, unless we, keep some kind of value on them. But they're just going to phase them out, and so those are the two indicators. So I always tell people don't believe anything until you see these two events happen. And the chemtrails are still going on. I mean, they've been hammering us with chemtrails like crazy, like triple layers. And, the Federal Reserve notes are still coming out of the ATMs. But from what I understand, that the other notes have already been printed. They're in the banks and they're going to start releasing them real soon. So when you start seeing the Treasury notes being released, you'll know that the Federal Reserve is over with and the banksters' control over the Federal Reserve is over with, and now everything's gone back to the Treasury.
Now, I know it's hard to put a timeline on a lot of these things, and sometimes we put timelines on things that we always miss the timelines and have to reassess. But is there an actual, rough deadline by when, if this doesn't happen, that we should assume that it's not going to?
Yeah, it's very close. It's very, very close from what I was told. And so they said kind of everything's in place. They're just getting ready, to pull the trigger on it, basically. And I don't think it can be blocked this time. It was blocked a few times. But I can't set a deadline on it, but I think it's very close. And what's interesting is, I did have a background in commercial real estate. That was another lifetime ago. That was like 30 years ago. But that's really not my forte. I'm more involved in other matters more in teaching about higher dimensions and physics and spiritual matters. That's more of my focus. And what's interesting is these grandfathers, because of the work I've been doing and my knowledge of the higher dimensions and how everything begins in cause, in spirit, and trickles down into the physical. It goes from consciousness to light to energy to mass. Because I'm aware of the other levels and who's who and the players on those other levels is why they've been contacting me and wanting me to be involved in this. And so, to be honest with you, I could care less about the money or the gold or anything else. I live in a beautiful place, a very natural environment, and I've got plenty of food, and I have my gardens, and do a lot of my, I can. The counseling work and the book sales and everything else take care of my life. I just try to live really simply. So these other things are not really something I want to get involved in, other than it can help out a lot of people. It can feed a lot of people. It can house a lot of people. It can clean up the environment and things like that. And that's why I'm involving myself in it. As far as I could walk through a whole warehouse full of gold and not even blink an eye, just keep going, but give me a beautiful setting in nature and I'll stop and take it in, so that's kind of like more not my nature.
Do you think it matters what people eat? You were just talking about your gardens and whatnot. And do you think diet makes a difference in consciousness? Does it matter that people eat meat or they don't? There's a lot of speculation in the spiritual conversation about those two things, and people are kind of polarized about it.
Yeah, it does matter. I know on a lot of the reservations, when you go there and you see the food that's available to the Native Americans, I just go, oh my God, they're just being poisoned. I mean, there's no produce, there's no fresh fruit hardly or things like that. Everything is sugar processed. It's going to turn your body acidic, which is perfect for cancer, and diabetes and all the other things. And I see things like that, and there's just a concerted effort to make people unconscious and ill, especially certain groups that might be sovereign and things like that. And I watch the fluoride in the water, the aspartame, the mercury, and inoculations, all those things, mercury just kills brain cells as soon as it touches them, it's like, but you look at there's just a concerted effort, with all the food additives, everything else, is to dumb down society and diminish your thought process and your health. And actually it's great for the big pharma because they're cashing in on all of this. So I think it's extremely important to know where your water comes from, the purity of your water, know where your food comes from, eat as close as you can to the earth, eat as natural as you can, and get away from, all the processed foods if you can. It's extremely important right now to do that, and also to do whatever cleanses you can of heavy metals and things like that, because we're getting sprayed daily with all these heavy metals: aluminum, strontium, barium, all these other weird little biologicals and other concoctions that are coming down in the chemtrails, and people need to get that out of their system. It's extremely toxic, and some people call them death dumps and things like that, and rightly so. It's heavy metals. There's nothing good to say about heavy metals in your system. It's especially they're accumulative and they build up, and then they start causing Alzheimer's and dementia and all these other problems that come with it, and all kinds of other health problems. The upper respiratory problems, the skin problems, the rashes, the gastrointestinal problems, and all those things are stemming from the chemtrails, especially with the high amounts of barium, which goes right to your muscles and your joints. And so people have a lot of muscle and joint pain. So it's definitely good to clean up your consciousness for one thing, and also clean up your environment, clean up the food you eat. And for me, I still eat a little bit of meat. I think it's because my body type needs it, or I just get so ungrounded. Even my yoga teacher told me to go out and eat a steak, because after the near-death experiences I had trouble getting back on the earth. And so I think everybody just has to follow their own inner guidance as to what is good. But I think lightening up on the heavy foods is probably a good idea right now.
Now, do you think they're spraying, you sort of touched on it, but other than aluminum, strontium, and those other the more commonly known ingredients in chemtrails, do you think they're spraying viruses and bacteria? I ask that because I just had my cat tested. You're familiar with Dr. Sam Muggsy, I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, she just tested my cat, and he's got all kinds of viruses and bacteria that there's no way he could possibly have gotten. That makes me wonder where it came from.
Yeah, it is coming down in the chemtrails, because I went through a test with 3 different sources, and they found things in my system like almost every form of radiation you can think of, radioactive material. They also found weird pharmaceuticals, which I've never taken, even chelation pharmaceuticals, which I've never had any kind of that radiation therapy. Some of the other things they're finding, just tons of mycoplasms and just some things they can't even recognize. But there's definitely things in those chemtrails, and it's diabolical. And the good news is that there are people that are really putting the pedal to the metal right now, and finding out who's involved and who's responsible, and going up the chain of command. And there's one thing I wish I could talk about right now, but I'm involved in some things where we actually found out there's certain people, high-level people in the military, that are actually bragging about the chemtrails that they're spraying, and actually the personal attacks against myself and the ranch. So unfortunately, they've done it at parties, and it's happened several times, and they've done it at parties, and the people at the parties knew me and gave me a phone call. So that's going to be really interesting how that unfolds.
Right. So can you clarify that? I know you said you can't talk about it too much, but what can you say about it?
Well, I mean, those are very serious offenses. Mm-hmm. When you really look into it, there's about 10 or 15 serious charges there that will come up. And so there are people that's the part I can't talk about. There are people that are really looking into this and will hold the people responsible for doing it, and just probably move up the ladder until they find out mm-hmm. who is really behind this whole system.
I've been hearing for months now a lot of chatter around this fall, September in particular, that now there is a solar eclipse in September. There was one back in March as well, and there's a lot of chatter going around about having earth changes, or severe weather, or a global financial collapse, or a terrorist attack, or all kinds of, there are all kinds of speculation, mostly on the negative side. And I've also I do a lot of work with Michaela Sheldon, who's an intuitive channel, and that channeled information seems to point in the direction of there's not going to be anything that catastrophic that we need to worry about, but it is another shift in consciousness. And so I'm curious what your perspective is on it. I mean, do you think that all these negative things are something to worry about, or is it really more of a positive?
Well, I kind of see like it's a race, it's a three-way race between, the Earth. I mean, she's going to go through her shift and she's expanding and, overheating a bit. And she's going to have to go through her changes because she's sucking in all that energy in the poles and it has to go somewhere. And she's going to do her thing. And then you've got the banksters, which are planning all these false flag things, and they want total dominion, total control over everyone and everything. And they're going to try to use their technology and their forces to do that. And then you've got the people waking up, and the white hats and the whistleblowers and all the other people that are coming forward and just saying, no, we're not playing this game. Even in the military, what I found out is well over 50% of the people are oath keepers, and they're not going to carry out any illegal orders. And so they have some very high people, and a lot of retired generals are really speaking out about what's going on there as well. So it's going to get really interesting. There's other factions involved that people don't know about it. There's unseen factions that are coming in right now that are so outrageous and that have total creational powers, you might say, that might be a little out of the box for most of your listeners. But there are higher dimensional beings, ultra dimensional beings. There's angelic or ascended master type beings. There's whole civilizations of beings that are stepping in right now to assist us, and they're very spiritually and very technologically advanced. And there's a huge cleanup right now of the darker forces that have been running rampant on the earth and their chain of command, which is the Illuminati and some of these other people, the banksters and all these other people that are involved in that. So there's a massive cleanup right now. And some people have heard of reptilian beings and negative grays, and they've heard of demonic type beings, serpent beings, and things like that. And those are real, and they are very active in unseen levels, and that energy is being cleaned up. So you'll see a lot of floundering by the old program, the old powers that be, or I call them the powers that were, are going to just be floundering. They're losing their connections. They're losing their puppet masters, and they're just spilling the beans constantly and making really, really stupid mistakes, and it's all going to catch up with them.
So are you expecting some major negative events happening in the next several months, or do you think that they're not going to really be able to do too much, or even the earth changes are not going to be anything too severe? What's your take on all the information that's going out there that people are speculating on these days?
I used to get really clear guidance about the future, and I've given a lot of information, even exact times and dates of earthquakes and things of that nature. And we're in this, like, I don't know, it's like a free flow zone right now where it's a different timeline, and the old timeline's collapsing, and there's a whole new shift happening. And I don't think anybody knows how it's going to turn out. And I know it's going to turn out positive. I don't know the details of how it's going to turn out and who's going to be left, at the end of the game. But I know that we have to align ourselves with this shift, these new energies, and become frequency specific to the earth transition that's going on, and start working with our higher dimensional aspects of ourselves, as well as these other beings to get through these shifts and through these changes. And those people will be the ones that are left standing, the ones that are tuned in and doing right action, right thinking and things like that are aligned, with the higher consciousness and energy and the awakening and healing process. That those people are the ones that are going to continue on this plane. The ones that are still holding the separation game going, the tyranny, the greed, they're not frequency specific to what's evolving, where everything is evolving to. So they aren't going to be around to see, the fruits of their shenanigans, you might say.
Now, a lot of people who watch this show are people who are light workers of some shape or another, and and I get a lot of calls and emails and messages from people all over the world who have been really struggling, especially since the eclipse in March, in their lives, whether it be health or relationships or just emotional turbulence of some kind. And so a lot of them write to us to try to understand what's going on, how long is it going to last, and with the second eclipse coming, I've been hearing that that's another consciousness shift. Now,
Yeah.
do you have any opinion on whether or not this period of intense struggle that people have been going through is going to change in the near future, or is this just part of this evolutionary process, and there's at this point no way to predict the end of that?
Well, my gut feeling is that these next 2 years, 16 and 17, are just going to be really critical. And we're going to, what they've been telling me is that if you look back at your life a year from now, you're not even the same person. We are evolving so fast. There's so many changes happening. And if a year from now, we're going to look back and go, wow, that was a wild ride, So people are going through all kinds of relationship changes, job changes. Some doors are closing, other doors are opening. We're in a major transition right now, and there is going to be a lot of chaos through this transition. But the bottom line is we have to find our center, through this. We have to practice loving detachment and allow people their processes and hold space for those processes. Because the whole world's in process right now. And I've noticed that. I'm watching people around me that are doing dances, and they're playing all these games, and they're trying to hook me into their dance, and I'm just going, okay, that's nice. And sometimes I'll dance with them a little bit, but I'm still observing the whole thing. And then I'll go, okay, I don't want to go in that direction. This one's not working. So I'm learning as well, to set boundaries with certain things and say, no, I don't want to, this is an unhealthy situation here. Let's bring it back to like integrity and practice love and kindness. The other stuff you can do somewhere else. But that's what I see is it's time to set boundaries and start practicing love and kindness and service and don't get caught up in all the other dramas. A master once told me, he said, the only reason anybody has any power over you is because you want something from them. So whether it be, emotional acceptance or love, acceptance and approval, or financing or whatever, all those dependencies are ones we need to let go and become sovereign within ourselves. And then, we're no longer being pulled in all these different directions.
So what do you think about the U.S. presidential election? Do you think it even matters at this point, whether or not anybody votes or even who's in the office? Obviously, the president doesn't have any power over anything, but do you have an opinion on the upcoming election? And when are we actually going to see a higher consciousness government? Is that in our foreseeable future, do you think?
I think there's going to be a couple wild cards coming in that are going to shock people. And they're really going to make people think, and they're going to bring out the big issues. And people are opening up to more of a knowingness, you might say, an inner knowingness, and the telepathy is kicking on. And so their BS meters are turning on. And I think we're going to have a big transition there. I don't think they're going to be able to install the people they want to install, and because it's always a choice of an evil of two lessers, is what we get. So it's time to do something different. I would like to see us governed by a group of grandmothers. I think that would be the best way to do things, is get a group of grandmothers in there and to oversee things, and not and grandmothers that are truly healthy, that know what it is to be a grandmother, or, a woman, nurturing energy and things like that. And they know what family's all about. You don't send your kids and your husbands off to war and things like that. So we need to get something like that going. Ultimately, I think we're going to end up joining another council, another kind of a galactic council, and that we're going to be getting advice from there. And that's going to be not too far out in the future, at least 2 years out, or more, where we're going to be aware of, yes, we do have brothers and sisters in space, and yes, they are extremely advanced, and maybe we should start listening to them because they've transcended war and disease and poverty, and they lack for nothing, and they might have a little wisdom to share with us. And I think those doors are going to start opening up. You know, they're already here. The doors are already opening up, but they're going to be on a grand scale in the next couple of years.
So by we, are you talking about the mainstream, or we as in, I mean, obviously...
Yeah, mainstream humanity is going to have a golden opportunity to join the greater family of man and clean up and restore the earth and pretty much, you know, end a lot of the disease and the poverty and the suffering here, you know, if we choose to go in that direction. And I think humanity is just tired of the overlords and the war and disease profiteers and the manufactured lack and you know, all of that stuff. They're just tired of that separation game, and so I mean, we're ripe. You know, we're ripe for a big shift to happen.
It's hard to see that, because I mean, when I live in the same world or very similar conversation as you live in, and so I speak with people who share this viewpoint. But if you go out into the mainstream world, the people who live in that world are very comfortable in not being aware of these things. So it's hard to imagine that world is going to accept something like that in such a short amount of time. What gives you encouragement that that's going to happen in such a short time?
Because I know the dynamics of energy and how it works, and I know we're moving into a super energized place in space, and there is so much energy coming into the planet from so many different sources that you just can't stay that dense, you know, for much longer. I mean, and I've seen too, I'm watching people that are, I never expected would be opening up. I mean, people are coming up here and they're opening up, they're having their minds blown. They're seeing the ships. They can't explain it. They're seeing the orbs flying around. You know, we're using the night vision and the infrared spotlights to light up the orbs so they can see them, and their minds are just being blown. And when they leave here, they're totally reevaluating everything. And it's people I never thought would ever be interested in any of this are now like just, you know, eating it up. So you know, it's definitely, things have changed, and I know. You know, a lot of people are still trying to fit into the herd consciousness or social consciousness, but if you talk to them one-on-one and you make this stuff available to them, it's amazing how many say, yeah, I want to know about that, or they'll come and check it out.
So you're just talking about some of the sightings you've had, and I know you mentioned before we got into this conversation that you had some really interesting sightings over the course of the last several weeks, and you had a conference going on as well during that time. Can you share a little about what was unique, or what you saw during that time?
Well, we had a really good group come up here. We had a pretty large conference, and you know, very powerful people from all walks of life came and gave lectures on everything from free energy to other dimensional realities to, you know, I think we covered just about everything. But what was interesting is that this really diverse group of people that gathered for this conference all got to go out in the field and watch these ships fly over and power up and make turns and do all kinds of crazy things, and brilliant lights. I mean, they have no strobes, no running lights on them. They aren't military or aircraft. I have triple PhD Boeing engineers and Lockheed Skunk Works engineers and Air Force base commanders all going on record saying these are not ours, and they are here. But they got to see that over the past few weeks. The mountain also, which is pretty outrageous, there's a door that opens on the mountain, this huge light door that opens up, and we got that on film, you know, opening up, and a giant, usually it's a white light, but sometimes it's bluish green comes out of it. And the size of this light, the mountain's 13 miles away. And I've had other scientists look at that and they said, boy, the sheer candle power, the luminosity of that door opening is so immense that it takes in hundreds and hundreds of feet of space, and with a massive amount of light coming from it. So it's not. We're trying to figure out how. At times, this thing lights up and it's almost a quarter mile wide. When the light is so big on the side of the mountain. But yeah, it's pretty intense, and people got to see that, and it was a real exciting evening. For in the field. We call it the Field of Dreams because all the things happened there. But yeah, it was pretty amazing. A lot of people went away just shaking their heads and saying, I really need to do some more research into this.
Now, you mentioned before, not on this show, but I've heard you mention before that you have more sightings over the weekends, and you attribute that to the consciousness of people is higher over the weekends because the energy settles down or something like that. Yeah. And so can you explain that concept? And also, when you say that, are you saying the consciousness of the people on the ranch, or the consciousness of globally of people is settled down on the weekends, and so there are more sightings on your ranch and maybe everywhere else?
Well, what happens on the weekends here is we have gatherings, and the gatherings that we have are focused on process-oriented therapy or meditation or the awakening healing process of humanity, Earth, or things like that. So we have a group consciousness here that is wide open. They're ready to have these experiences, and we call it dazzle duty. They come in and they see all the people that go, oh, they're going forward. Like, okay, let's help them out. Let's show them some things, and they just do their little dazzle duty up in the sky and do a lot of activity. And then they're still flying during the week as well. And sometimes if you have a small group of people that are real focused, that are very spiritually attuned, they'll come really low. And usually on my birthday, which was actually yesterday, they usually come in and put in quite a show. I had a really big one fly over the house again on my birthday, but my camera wouldn't boot up. I turned my camera on. I was going to film this thing. I'm waiting for it to boot up. And when it finally booted up, it was too late. But did get a nice big power up and fly over that. They always do that on my birthday.
So do you have these pictures posted somewhere, the ones you mentioned earlier of the lights from the mountain and everything?
Yeah, they're actually on the website. You can see a lot of that. And I have them in my talk when I do my lectures. I show all the footage. I show these massive light ships flying over and powering up, and the different masters that have appeared there. We've actually photographed. We've got photographs of Babaji and Kuan Yin and other masters that have appeared there. It's a pretty interesting place. It's just a place. The Field of Dreams there is a place where the dimensions are very thin. The veils between dimensions are very thin, and even the higher dimensional beings call it a stargate. So it's a place where you can have your own personal contact and experience. I always tell people, don't take my word for it. Come do your own investigation. We have those armchair investigators that go, oh, it's a meteor, it's a satellite, and they bring in, whenever I go on the news, they bring in their expert debunker, and they sanitize all the outrageous footage. And we show them ships landing on the mountain and morphing into four and things like that. And the head of OMSI and these other NASA scientists they bring on, they go, oh, that's the space shuttle. They mistook it for the space shuttle. And these things are landing on the mountain and morphing into three ships and back to one again. I've never seen a landing strip on Mount Adams. It's snow packed. There's no way. But they come up with these ridiculous theories. But there's people out there that, because they have the PhD and they work for the organization, they'll believe anything they say, and they won't use critical analysis of what they're saying. But I'm just blown away how when the major news people come out here, they sanitize everything and they show obscure footage, of a ship flying over that could be the space station or something. They don't show the really good stuff.
That's interesting you should mention Babaji, because I was just thinking about him the other day and wondering, do you think, and in Babaji is really popular in Indian tradition, and he's said to appear in multiple locations at the same time. He never ages, and I think it's every 118 degree or years or something. They encase him in concrete, and then he shows up again a few days later, and the concrete is not broken. So there are a lot of interesting stories around him, and that he's been around for thousands of years, and that apparently he's a sort of like the physical manifestation of God on Earth. So I'm wondering, what's your theory on Babaji? Do you think he's extraterrestrial or just some very advanced human being?
Well, I think he's an ascended master. He actually transcended the physical body and turned it into more of a light body. And those that do that through the ascension process can actually come back in the physical and manifest like a less dense physical body and appear to people. There are also other ultra-dimensionals that can do that as well, that have also mastered that, and they can appear wherever they want to appear almost instantaneously. So what they told me was, what Babaji told me, I was meditating once, and he told me it was on their prayers that the Pleiadians and the Orion Counts of Light and the Andromedans are coming to help out humanity right now, because it's the prayers of the masters that got their attention to assist in this process, because we've just been under such a negative interaction for so long. It's been going on way past even Egyptian times into Atlantis and Lemuria. We've had these other beings that have been hijacking the evolution of Earth, and it got to a point where it's just overwhelming that we had to bring in some big guns, you might say, to start cleaning up the mess, and just so the Earth can continue. Because if they didn't step in, we would probably end up completely destroying this planet. We'd probably turn into the asteroid belt like the other planet that there was a planet called Maldek or Malona, it depends on which culture you refer to, that blew up because of misuse of technology, and it's now the asteroid belt. And they think a civilization and an environment is a terrible thing to waste, so they are trying to get us to move in the right direction. The good news is our nukes aren't going to work. I mean, there's no way we can have a nuclear war because they won't allow it. And they're going to step in and start cleaning up a lot of the other messes that we've created. They're going to start helping out with that agenda. But that's what's interesting, is that, I keep asking for help. I said, we got to clean up Fukushima and these other things. And they are participating now and helping out with that. But, one of the things they said to me was, it's not our mess. We didn't make it. And also, too, you're still making messes. You haven't learned from this one. You're still building new ones. So why should we keep coming in and cleaning up the mess when you haven't gained the wisdom from the experience and you keep doing it? So it's a hard one to argue. But, my love for humanity, the Earth, definitely outweighs, that program. So, and that's what I was telling. But, there's a lot of innocent life down here being affected by that it's not their wish or their desire. And so, we have to step in and start cleaning things up on that note. But, I think that's where it's going. Eventually it's going. But I've had full-blown arguments with them. This prime directive or hands-off policy is nonsense. I said, we're down here getting our butts kicked. Where are you? And so I've had a lot of those conversations with them, and I think they're finally agreeing, that they need to get a little more proactive and make themselves known in the physical here.
So when you have these conversations, are these face-to-face physical conversations, or on a ship, or are you somehow, is it a multidimensional conversation or channeling, or what exactly? How do you experience that?
It's interesting because I have had all the above. I have had face-to-face. I've been on the ships that are physical. I've been on ships that are just pure energy, and I've been on motherships that have all kinds of different beings on them by going out of body through my own practices. And all of them are just the thought away. I mean, your telepathic abilities, once you enhance them, thought travels instantaneous, and it doesn't matter where they are. There's always a constant communication. So that just comes with a certain level of consciousness. When you reach that level, you can communicate, all the time. So we have daily communications. We work with and get answers and ask questions, and we use other processes, divination processes, to find out exactly, get detailed things if we need to know. And we've been doing that for well over 30 years now. So it's pretty precise, and it's shown to be very accurate.
So what do you think is, I mean, obviously we have the technology and the means to clean up Fukushima now, and yet it's not being done. So what's your opinion on what was the purpose of Fukushima? Was it done on purpose, and why is it still left the way that it is?
Well, I think the powers that are being phased out right now wanted Fukushima, and I think it was an engineered false flag situation. That's what psychopaths were dealing with here. They care nothing for life or nature or anything else, and and when you go up the hierarchical ladder of power and wealth, it just gets blacker and blacker and blacker, unfortunately, until you get to a level of groups that just have no respect for creation, at all. They just feed off the destruction and the pain and the suffering, and that's where they're at. And so that's being cleaned up right now. But it's sad that it's allowed to go that far, and they've allowed these things to happen. But we have to take responsibility as a people, because we haven't stood up to these things, and we've allowed these things to happen, and we've allowed things to be built, and the pollution, all the other stuff around these things, without taking into respect, the earth and the consequences, of this radioactive material. The good news is that I have to find out if I can talk about this yet, but there's already there are systems in place that are running massive engines on water that are generating a huge amount of electricity. So there's no need for nukes anymore. These nuclear generators, they're obsolete, and to keep running these things with and the waste that they're creating, and they're ticking time bombs. I mean, these all need to be shut down, and these other systems need to be place. They're simple. They're just very large engines. I don't want to say too much because I want to give it up, but I'll be able to talk about this real soon, about these other systems and how they're functioning. Going to go as a CME or a pulse. The way they're set up, they're going to keep running throughout all this stuff. So, for security purposes, for restoration of the planet purposes, there's no reason why we can't just retrofit, just take this, run the dynamos with these other systems, the generators through these other systems. We can open up the dams and, let the fish be swimming up river like they're supposed to, and do a lot of really awesome things, if we in place these other. And actually, too, this system that's in place is as awesome as it is. It's a dinosaur compared to the other technologies that are not allowed to come out yet. But it is amazing in its own, because, there's no fuel involved. There's the water, you can take water from anywhere, and it's not a lot of water that it uses. You don't have to cool everything down. You don't need tons of water radioactive and try to cool things, because you're not going to have a meltdown. In worst case scenario, you might have a bearing go out, or something like that, which could be replaced.
So you're talking about some kind of free energy generator that can power an entire community or city? Yeah,
it runs on water.
Okay. So so basically it converts the water into energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen some smaller versions of that. I didn't know that there was work being done on larger units.
Yeah, I mean, there are plants already built, and they're already producing a lot of electricity, and they're getting, they're paying for themselves.
Mm-hmm. So, any idea when we're going to be able to have a glimpse of these things actually go into function, go into operation?
They are, as I'm saying, there are some in operation already. Uh-huh. They just haven't got the ribbon yet. They haven't ready to actually, go public with it. Mm-hmm. But it's already it's very public in the area where they're operating. I mean, everybody knows about them and where they're operating. But I think I just need to wait a little while before I give you more detailed information about that, because they are up and running, and in fairness to the people that have invested in this and have built this and the scientists involved and everything else, I need to kind of hold off on that one for a little while.
So what else is happening in the area of free energy technology? Anything that's, I know you mentioned last time we talked that there are some inventors who are working on some interesting technologies and they're just concerned for their life, and so they're not really releasing anything. But
Yeah.
I mean, how long is that going to go on before we actually will be able to see something on the market?
You know, Laura Eisenhower talks a lot about how the secret space fleet and there's a secret government, like a breakaway group. And they have all of that technology. I mean, they have, and there's other people that have actually built that technology that are in the civilian field right now too. And if things go down the way it looks like they're going to go down, is that these other people in very high places are going to step forward and say, okay, enough, you know, we are going to release these technologies, and they're ready to go. I mean, they're already built and ready to go in a lot of different places. And so when that happens, you know, the tyrants have to fall. I mean, we have to step in. People need to rise up and take their power back, and the tyrants have to fall. And as soon as they do that, you know, the abundance of the planet is going to kick in, and we're not going to have a problem, you know, at all in producing whatever we need. But the problem is we just got to get rid of these tyrants that are enslaving us through dependency, you know, and you know, creating the manufactured lack and the uneven dispersal of wealth, and the refusal to disperse the wealth of food that's being grown and things like that. I said earlier, I think I told in the show, I drove by this one place and I go, what are those mountains over there? And they go, those aren't mountains, that's corn, you know, or that's wheat. And I go, those are that's the odd looking mountains over there. And they're like they look like small mountains of corn and wheat and things like that. And then you have all these people starving around the planet. And I kept asking these people, why do you just let that rot? And they said, well, it's because we have to keep the prices up. And so I said, you're letting everybody die because you need to keep the prices up. I said, what? What's up with that? I said, that makes no sense whatsoever. Distribute it. And I said, oh, there's all kinds of people that would jump in and distribute this. You know, all kinds of nonprofit people that want to, you know, end hunger and that would distribute this. And they have all kinds of reasons why they're hoarding this, you know, and not getting out there. But there's such an abundance of food being created that's just tossed out and not used, or the distribution is not happening. That once that's taken care of, and you know, when you've got you know, magnetic trains, or you have other forms of distribution that are going to be really quick and fuelless, then that's not a problem. You can distribute these things everywhere. I always tell people, if you want to look at the big picture, what happens when you have a replicator? You know, it's like, you know, you don't have to do anything or go anywhere. You can totally be creative and do whatever you want because now you have a replicator. So it's you know, there's some really super high tech that supposedly is out there, and I haven't seen that kind of technology. But you know, that's on the most extreme level. But you know, if you do have, there are ways of solving these problems, and the technology is here. It's on the planet already. It's just a matter of getting the people out of the way that are blocking it.
Now, what have you seen in person as far as technology? The generator you're talking about, I assume you've seen that. Yeah,
I've seen that generator. I've seen other generators. I've seen I've seen generators the size of a small pie plate that have 9 coils in them. Each coil puts out 25,000 watts, and it's ice cold. It's spinning really fast. I've seen a lot of different things. I can't really tell you where I saw these because I don't want to put the guy's life in jeopardy. But and I was trying to help get these things out back in the 90s. And I showed video of all these machines running, and actually a motor for a flying car and all these different things. And boy, everything just broke loose on that one. Families were threatened, labs were blown up, we were threatened, and we had everybody under the sun coming after us. So that got kind of dismantled and put in several different places. But I have some pretty easy technology. I know it's available, just how to get it out. And every while they just, well, you just shotgun it out, or you just do this, you do that, and unfortunately, some of the inventors, they want to see, this is their life work. They want to see something back for it, which is understandable, and so they're not just going to give it away. And then and then they've got the other aspect of it that you really try to get it out, you're going to get taken out. So if one person holds on to it and tries to do it, that person's going to disappear. They're going to be given the deal. The deal is you either give this to us and we take the patent of it and put it on the shelf, or you and your family, and go on a holiday and we'll pay for everything, or you and your family are going to take another kind of holiday where, you might be wearing some cement shoes or something, So they give you that kind of a deal, and most people take the other deal.
You mentioned early on about how you want to see a world where we have grandmothers in charge of our governments.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk a little about the divine feminine for a second, because I was reading this book recently that speculates that back in thousands of years ago, the divine feminine was equal to masculine, and women were leaders and were highly respected, and that shifted really in the time of the start of the major religions and the religious texts. And it was speculating how the written word became really dominant at the writing of these texts was really a catalyst for us to move toward a masculine society where women were not respected, and because the written word really also stimulates the left brain and left brain thinking, and which is really more masculine, and that we're potentially heading into a world now where we are more visually based now, not only just written word. And so we may be balancing that to getting back to the empowering of women and the divine feminine again. Do you have any thoughts on that, or any opinion?
Definitely. It needs to happen. It got so out of balance. They found some scrolls. I love these really ancient scrolls, and I haven't looked into that. I think we might have talked about that last time, but there was the scroll I get to the right Jesus. It's just recent, where he said that out of all of his disciples, Mary was the most qualified to carry forward his teachings. So here, now you have Mary being a disciple. Not only is she a disciple, she's the most qualified disciple to carry forward his teachings. Well, that is really big news for the Vatican and all these other guys, I never could figure that out. How come they own Jesus basically, and they're the guys that killed him? It's like, wait a second. How did they take that one over? Nobody used critical thinking, and why is there a rabbit, in Easter, why do we have eggs, Easter egg hunts? People need to really start doing the research, but it definitely needs to happen. In most advanced civilizations, it's balanced, and some of the extremely advanced civilizations, it's more feminine is in charge of things. It's a much healthier, a much wiser approach to have the feminine in charge. The reason why is that the feminine energy is more subjective. It's more sensitive. You have to the spirit to receive it. The more objective you are, the more cut off you are from spirit and from the higher teachings, the higher realities, the higher wisdom. And your masculine side is your objective side. So we have both sides within ourselves. We have the feminine side, which receives our left side, brings in the information, the inner right part that carries it out, the objective side. And and if we're balanced, it's great, but there's such an imbalance right now. But it actually is a lot healthier than injected spirit. And emotional brains actually differently because they work more from the emotional body, which is fast compared to the intellect, and it processes much faster. The Pleiadians, most of the pilots are female because they're more sensitive, and the ships are extremely sensitive between the ship, and so their bits are actually females because because of their sensitivity, you might say, allows them to have greater mastery and speed of calculation, you might say, that's necessary to operate the ships.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little blow to man coming to macho, little blow to the macho program there.
Yeah, I want to just take a second to apologize to viewers because we're having lots of problems with the connection here, but yeah, from what I understand, you're having a lot of problems there at the ECETI Ranch and surrounding areas. Anywhere where you try to make an internet connection to get a steady signal today. So, anyway, hopefully we can get through the rest of the interview without too many disruptions.
We've had for a while there, we're having 5 helicopters a day, and
right.
We're not in any flight path whatsoever. And 5 to 12 helicopters a day right overhead, right over the ranch, and it's wreaking havoc on our internet and technology, and I think they're using psychotronics and other things as well. I'm not sure what they're using, but we've had them fly over with a large, looks like a half of a ball, where they are pulsing magnetic energies from this system, and I know what that one is, but that one's using microwave energies, but getting really interesting up here. So there are some people that really don't want this information to come out.
Yeah, it seems like it. We had to reschedule several times, and even today we're having trouble. So yesterday was your birthday, and I've been a long time student and in numerology, and I couldn't help but notice that this is your number 1 year, and so you must have in the past year, and now you're going through a major shift in your life. Are you contemplating some new directions in the work that you're doing or in your life at this point?
Well, definitely. I have to kind of start gearing back a little bit because, I've been doing about, 9 things just on the weekend alone. Those take a lot out of me, as well as doing radio shows and trying to catch up on emails, which I'm still so far behind. It's ridiculous. And the ranch itself, takes a lot out of me. So just holding space there and holding the energy there. So I noticed that what I'm going to have to do, just because of my own health needs, I'm going to have to kind of start gearing back a little bit and kind of turning the reins over to others for certain things to keep those going. But I'll be traveling a lot. I've got a big conference coming up in Shasta real soon on the 19th. And then I'm looking at China, traveling to China and Australia and a few other places that they want me to come out and do some lectures and things like that. So, I'm not sure where this is all going to go. I'm just kind of monitoring it, and taking it a day at a time.
Mm-hmm. So you just recently had some conference out there, I believe, and had a lot of interesting presenters on your stage. Can you talk a little about some of the highlights and some of the more interesting presentations?
Yeah, we had Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who, she talks about all the jinn, and she talks about the paranormal aspects of things, and everything from Bigfoot to these humanoid wolf beings to you name it, that are really well documented. And we had Winston Strout, he's like the father of the sovereignty movement, you might say, or the commerce, movement. And he was out. He's going to come out again and do another workshop here real soon. And myself, I gave a lecture and showed, all the doubles beings working, and showed some amazing footage of the ships that are coming in on a regular basis there. Boy, I'm trying to think who else was on the docket. There was quite a few speakers. We had Michael Elijah was there. We had Captain K, or Randy Kramer, who was the guy. He was part of the secret space fleet on Mars and doing battle there with some interesting beings, and that was quite fascinating, that information. And it validated a lot of my own information too that I had. So it was very, very interesting. We had Alexandra Metters, and there's a whole host of people there. And a lot of people just stepped up. We had some extra people we just put on at the last minute that came in. So it was quite a large group of people. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, but we had John Rappaport come in and through Skype actually. And then we had Weber come in. I'm brain farting. What's his first name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't
Alfred Weber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred Weber came in. And so, we covered everything. We covered everything from politics to the financial thing to law to the higher dimensional things and to Mars and the projects going on there that people don't know about. And I don't know what we didn't cover. We covered free energy as well.
So were there any presentations that were especially interesting or that might have an impact in terms of like information that was presented that may impact our society in the short term?
Boy, it's hard to say because all of it was very powerful. And everybody, like some of them were just the top in their field, and they opened up some really powerful information. So it's hard to pick which one, was the best. I was having fun picking Winston's brain about the shift and the global shift and what's happening. And he has insights and connections, on the highest levels too. And he's one of the people that I work with, to check and counter check information as it's coming in. But there's quite a few sources. But boy, it's hard to. It would be hard to nail down. John Rappaport was great. He talked about cognitive dissonance and how people, you'll be talking to them and how they just go blank. And they, be talking about, boy, I saw a UFO the other day, and all of a sudden this field comes down and they go blank and they don't hear anything. And then you start a new subject and all of a sudden they're there again, And he was talking about how, anything you talk about outside the box, they start staring off and looking around, and then, when you get back on track with social consciousness, then they're attentive again. And he was really funny. He gave a lot of different subjects about that on how he had to break away from the mainstream news and create his own, private news link and things like that, because they wouldn't cover a lot of the information that he wanted to get out. But yeah, he was excellent. And there's just, it's hard to say who brought out more pertinent information, because it was all different. It was all different levels of information from different aspects of life.
So I want to just clarify. So cognitive dissonance meaning basically that people have certain preconceived notions or perceptions of their reality, and so when you try to present them with something that's outside that reality, they either don't want to believe you or they'll try to invalidate it using their version of reality, right? Something like that. Is what you mean? Yeah.
It's almost like a lot of them just go blank.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. It's like when I see that, I go, the fluoride's working, because they just go blank. And it's like some kind of conditioning or something that they're afraid to step outside the box or out of herd consciousness or outside of their own belief systems. And they just start looking around and they don't hear it. And then they change the subject or wait for you to come back online with something that's within their reality or what they want to accept. So it's amazing. Watch it time. I'll show people footage and they just can't handle it. It just blows a fuse on them. and then they try to explain it away, and I said, come on, it is what it is. It's like, you can try to make it something else, but it's so obvious, what this is. And it's just interesting watching people.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a major hurdle to overcome, because as a whole world, the majority of the mainstream is still very much set in their mindset and their psychology, largely because our society, our governments have conditioned them to believe that way. So unless somebody goes on mainstream news and wears a tie and a suit and says, I just met an alien, it's not really going to. And even then, they're going to. I think a lot of people will think that it was just a fake news report, right? It's going to be hard to get past that psychology.
Yeah, it is. But I've seen more and more that if you go on YouTube, you'll see news all over the world right now, and even in the U.S. where it's totally censored, is where all these people are coming on about UFO reports, and some of them have the giggle factor in there, but they are airing the footage, and they're interviewing people and from all walks of life are saying, hey, the footage, this was not, anything they could identify. So basically what you're looking at is an unidentified flying object. They can't identify it. It's unknown. And that's what it is. As far as aliens on it or little green men, or that's another story. But they are, the UFO story is getting out all over the planet right now, and most other planets just accept it. It seems like U.S. is lagging so far behind all the other cultures.
So did he have anything to say about how do we deal with cognitive dissonance in our awareness? Because there are so many. One of the challenges I have is there are so many people who are speaking about extraterrestrials and free energy and so many other things, and not very many people have actually seen any of these things in person, right? Now you've experienced these things, but a lot of people haven't. And so how do we know, and obviously if you speak to this community and you tell them what you believe, they're going to accept that because that's part of their psychological conditioning. But how do we get through the what's true and what's not, and understand what we should accept as reality?
I think it's really important you do your own investigation. That's the bottom line. You can't really trust a lot of sources out there, especially the internet and things like that. That's all. There's so much CGI and other nonsense out there. But the bottom line is that we all need to do our own investigation, and I've investigated a lot of claims, as well as Joel Garvin, who wrote Breakthrough Energy and things like that. And he's the type of guy that says, okay, show me the beef, show me it working, show me the measurements, show me. And so we need to do that. We need to you can't just make a wild claim and not be able to produce anything. And so we do have people that are going around and checking it out. And I've done my own investigation. And actually I've played with some of the technologies on a really small scale and found out the principle to be sound, but we just have to scale it up.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to ancient civilizations a little bit, and Greek mythology and so on. We talked last time a bit about Enki and Enlil and the Anunnaki and so on. Now, how do they tie into the Egyptian civilization and the Greek gods and so on? Is there some relationship between those stories, were those extraterrestrials, or do you have any theories on that?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, they came from ancient Lyra, and people call them the Anunnaki. And Anunnaki just means those who came from heaven to earth. And there was different groups that were coming here, and they, unfortunately, there were some groups that were very heavy-handed and very they're very technologically advanced but spiritually backwards. And there's some groups that were very spiritually advanced and were very service-oriented. And all of our religions were based on the Anunnaki, basically, that were here. The image of the bearded god came from the Anunnaki. And so there's different Anunnaki beings that, Marduk started the Muslim religion, and you'll see him on the dinar. He's actually on the dinar. Different groups that Enki and Enlil actually moved to Greece and became Poseidon and Zeus. Enki was Poseidon, he was like more of a creator god, emotional love, and loved his creations and things like that. Zeus was the warring god. They all of these ancient stories and the demigods and everything, which were the offsprings of the Anunnaki, where they actually mated with humans, found women to be fair and took them as wives. That's in the Bible. It talks all about that. Our whole history is replete with experiences that came from the Anunnaki, the original Anunnaki. Now, there's other things that happen here as well. The Earth's been colonized several times, and there's different groups that have come here. And so we're just this rich soup of genetics from the star nations. And when you factor that in, then all the science makes sense. The archaeology and the pyramids and all the other things that were built here all come together when you factor in the fact that there are extremely technologically advanced beings that were here in our ancient future. And they left testimony of that.
So in conventional science, we talk about how human beings have only really existed on Earth for a short period of time, and prior to that, we descended from apes and so on. And there's this missing link, right? That is still sort of missing. Do you think that we actually did evolve in the Darwinian theory, or was there some kind, as you're saying, the Anunnaki experiment or some sort of genetic experimentation? And how did that result in multiple races? How do we end up with so many different kind of races on Earth as well?
Yeah. Well, there's multiple beings involved, multiple star nations that came here and set up colonies, which gave us that. There was a being that was evolving here naturally. We called him the Neanderthal man, and that he was uplinked, by the Anunnaki. They were mining gold here, and the Gigi, their miners, revolted, and so they had to figure out a way to keep mining the gold to save their planet, and for other health reasons that they used the monatomic gold for. But and so they did. They created a race of beings that, using their genetics along with the being that was here and evolving naturally, just wasn't evolved enough, wasn't smart enough for their. So they gave it a jump in DNA. We have the DNA of the gods. It's just not active, but we can activate it. There's different ways of activating that energy, the genes. And so it's not, the junk DNA is not junk. It's just inactive. And that's being activated as we speak by the sun and by higher conscious energy. And there's a lot of experiments around that. So it can be done scientifically, and it's being done naturally as part of an evolutionary process right now. But there was a being, evolving naturally here, but we're also the culmination of at least 12 major star nations that were involved in not just the human life, but the plant life and the animal life here as well. And any geneticist that worth their salt, when they look at this, they'll just go, there's no way the myriad of life forms here could have evolved in the time period, through random mutation, all these other programs that they try to explain, things evolving from. So it just doesn't add up. None of it adds up. The only thing that adds up is you've got to factor in the ET equation, and then it all makes sense.
So you mentioned monatomic gold. Now, so you're referring to what's called Ormus today, right? Essentially. Mm-hmm. So have you used Ormus, or have you known Ormus to be a good tool to activate some of these dormant genes?
If you get the right stuff, there's a lot of different metals that you can ingest, like palladium and indium and silver and gold and all of them. There's ways of making these that you can actually help your body to assist your body in the new frequencies and to channel more energy, basically. But I have tried it. what I found is you have to know the right people and get the right kind. You know, it has to be done right, it has to be made right, and that's real expensive. That process is a very expensive process. You know, I haven't really gotten too involved in that, but yeah, I'd like to know more about it, and like to find somebody doing it right, you know, and then try it out. But I am using kind of like a colloidal silver, but a colloidal gold as well. I am using those products.
Mm-hmm. And who makes these products?
A physicist down in Mexico makes these for me.
Oh, I see. So it's not an available product you can buy online. It's okay.
No, it's not.
So it's just you're just a guinea pig or what? An experiment?
Yeah, kind of. My brother and I do that. My brother and I go down and play around with some of the new stuff, the new technologies, and the new healing technologies.
Mm-hmm. So we mentioned you mentioned there are a lot of other interesting things that happen around the ranch, like the Bigfoot sightings and so on. What other kind of interesting things happen around there?
Well, it's like every day is a new day. So when I wake up in the morning, I just kind of wonder what's going to happen next. You know, because I've seen some things that are just so weird, so bizarre. I don't even talk about it, you know, because you know people think you're bonkers. But I had Dave Schrader. And I think it's After Dark Radio. I think that's the name of his radio show. And he came out to the ranch, and he actually brought the Paranormal State people out afterwards. But we were out in the field, and two things happened there. And if I didn't have witnesses, I wouldn't even talk about it. One, this object flew over us, and it looked like a stingray. It looked, and it had undulating, the edges of it were kind of undulating like a stingray in a way. And you could see through it, and it was like a plasma type ship or something like that. And it was alive kind of, it just went right over us, and just freaked him out. You know, he got up and started chasing it, and he was throwing rocks at it, trying to see if it was a hologram. And it was kind of hilarious watching that. And we've had some strange, there's actually I'm trying to remember what it is. It's the best way I can, it's like a pterodactyl thing that's been flying around. It has the ball on the end of its tail. It's like a pterosaurus or something. No, I'm probably not saying it right. I looked it up, but the police have seen it. It's it'll be eating roadkill on the side of the road. They've seen it. A lot of people have seen this, and we had it sitting up in a tree once, just squawking, you know, making this noise out of Jurassic Park, basically. And it was the most weirdest thing I've ever heard, you know. But that thing took off, and it flew right over the group, you know. So pilots have also seen this thing flying around. But when it flies, it's not like anything you've ever seen. It's really working hard to stay up in the air. You know, it's flapping really hard. Its skin is leathery. It doesn't have feathers. It's pretty interesting. You know, I'm just waiting. Something's going to happen with this thing. Something big is going to happen where there's going to be multiple sightings or something like that. I know that's probably right around the corner. I don't know how soon that's going to happen.
So you're talking about a big bird, right? Not like a little one.
No, this thing's really big. It's very, very big.
And so what do you think is happening there? Do you think that do you think you're observing some kind of a dimensional shift where you're sort of, maybe there are two dimensions coexisting for a previous time, so you're seeing an animal that maybe might have existed on Earth in another time space, or do you think that that's actually physically in the same time space as you are, and they're just sort of merging for some reason?
Well, there's time slips going on. There's some really strange time slips happening there, and also too, there's a doorway to the inner Earth, and I think something just flew out the door. You know, something from the inner Earth, because I heard everything's preserved down there. They have huge areas where all the life that has ever been on the planet is still preserved. So, you know, maybe it came out of there. We had some other birds land in the field that looked like cranes, and they were well over 6 foot tall. And I showed pictures to a lot of different biologists and things like that, and they couldn't identify them. They said, you know, we don't know what these are, but they were huge. I mean, they were almost intimidating, you know, when you saw them. But yeah, there's a lot of strange things happening up here like that.
Hmm. So you haven't actually touched any of them. You basically you've captured them on film though somehow.
Yeah, I actually got a picture of the cranes, the two cranes. The pterodactyl, I didn't get it on film, but there's been multiple witnesses that have seen it. Uh, the but And the other one too, when that other strange thing flew over us, there was a whole group out there. It was Dave Schrader's group was out. Their group was out there. There's a lot of other people out there, and we all saw it fly right over us. But on that one, unfortunately, a lot of these things happen and nobody picks their camera up. They're so shocked and they're just staring at it. And they forget they even have a camera.
So that was that an actual animal, a stingray, or was it a ship that was far above you?
It looked to me like some kind of biological ship, basically, is what it looked to me like. It was really bizarre.
It was something quite large, but
Yeah,
not really that close to you. Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
But it's almost like it almost felt like I was in some kind of a aquarium or something, looking up, and this big thing's flying over you, and you're just going, wait a second, that's not manta rays are not supposed to be here, but it's pretty bizarre things going on. I had another thing that happened to me. I was gardening one day and there's this little trail right in front of the house, and this little guy, like a pygmy, came walking by, and he had a little string. So all he was wearing was a little string. He had a big smile and he had a stick in his hand. And he was looking at me. He was just smiling as he was walking by, and he just vanished. And I had another person help me in the garden, and they saw it too. And I said, did you see that? And they go, yeah. And I said, what'd you see? So I wanted to hear from them what they saw to make sure that I saw it too. But just weird things happen there all the time, like little time slips, and get a lot of the little people running around there and stuff like that.
So what do you think that is? I mean, do you think it's because that particular area is on a vortex, and so there are all these time distortions, or why is it that this is happening in your area?
Well, there's two major ley lines that cross there, for one thing. The higher dimensional beings refer to it, ECETI, as the Stargate. They call it the ECETI Stargate. So there's a Stargate above us that things pop in and out on a regular basis. There's so many different things going on there. It's just like all the different kingdoms, even mythological things start appearing there now and then. And it's you think you're losing it, but luckily most people have witnesses when it happens.
So what are some of the more, I've heard all kinds of different extraterrestrial races, and last time we talked about some of the more primary ones like the Pleiadians and so on. What are some of the more, some of the lesser known ones? Now, I actually was just listening to Simon, I forget his name now, Simon something, but he was talking.
Yeah, Simon Parks.
Yeah, Simon Parks. Yeah. I was speaking with him. I'm going to be speaking with him soon, actually. And he talks in one of his presentations about this praying mantis kind of extraterrestrial race. And I remember not too long ago watching this Hollywood film about an extraterrestrial race that happened to be praying mantis. And I wondered at the time, if there was actually, at the time I didn't know that there was an actual race like that. Have you ever had encounters with that race? And are they benevolent or malevolent? Because he seemed to suggest, I think, that they used to be malevolent, but they've made the choice more recently to be in service to humanity.
Yeah, I have seen them. I've experienced them before, and I didn't feel anything negative around that experience. A lot of people are seeing these other insect beings, like, and what I learned a lot from Randy Kramer about the more physical beings that he engages in Mars and the space fleet. And he talks a lot about these reptilians in different parts, the Dracos, and there's another reptilian group, and they're fighting among themselves. And there's some reptilians that are more evolved and a lot more powerful than the Dracos. And when they engage, they said you don't want to be anywhere near them, when they go into battle. But he had a lot of stories where he talked about the different insectoids and the different beings that are involved in Mars and other places. But I have experienced some of those. I've experienced the Greys, the reptilians, and some serpent type beings and things like that are that are not in your highest and best good. And that brings up a subject which I keep getting chastised for by certain groups, because I tell them just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened, and just because you're an alien doesn't mean you're benevolent. And so they keep opening up to just anything that comes along, and they have these contact groups and these initiatives and things, and they just open up to just anything. And I said, that's not a good idea. That's a really good way to get possessed or to get in trouble, or you might be connecting with something that is not in your highest and best good, because it's not all roses out there. But the most of it is benevolent. Most of it is now that's coming in now is in our highest and best good, but there has been a lot of malevolent activity on the earth, and that's being cleaned up now and moved on out.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Hopis speak about something they call ant people.
Yeah.
What race is that?
There's a group of ant people, and they're interesting. I haven't experienced that group yet, but they're more of a hive consciousness, and I don't think they're much of a threat. They just keep to their own and they do their own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they speak about, I think the ant people live in the center of the earth or something like that. So what do you think about the hollow earth theory, and that they're extraterrestrial civilizations living in the center of the earth and so on?
Well, the earth is definitely honeycombed, and there's a lot of pockets, and very large pockets, and there are massive underground caverns that are developed, you might say. I know that for a fact. As far as there's different earths. That's what people have a hard time understanding that. But there are other earths that are just phased out. They're just a little out of phase from this earth, and different realities going on. So there's just so many different things happening. It's hard to nail down what somebody's experiencing. But personally, I definitely believe that there are extremely advanced civilizations on the interior, and we've engaged in those many times. Our government calls them the enemy within, because they can't conquer them because they're too advanced. So the government knows about them. But yeah, they're definitely there. There's some very advanced civilizations, and the openings are at the South Pole, North and South Pole, and there's Tibet has some openings, and actually there's an opening, in our area, which I don't want to say where it is, but I don't want people going up there and messing things up.
Simon Parks talks a lot about how it's certainly in the U.S., but around the world, there are a lot of our secret military organizations and space program organizations and so on have in their insignias either extraterrestrials or serpents or dragons or something like that. Do you think that's just something intentional on a higher level, that the people who are orchestrating these different groups are aware of that, or is it just an unconscious thing that these groups and military organizations are using these insignias?
No, I think they are using for a reason. And there's a lot to those insignias, and there's a lot of thought that went into them when they created them. So, I think there's, I've seen some of the insignias, and they are pretty obvious, but, there are benevolent dragons, and then there are some dragons that are pretty nasty, that there's serpent beings out there that you don't want to have anything to do with at all. I mean, they're very nasty. Mm-hmm. They're the height of the Archon network, you might say. There's grays and reptilians you don't want to deal with, and that are in some, the insignias or whatever. So it's like, yeah, there's different things. It's like some of the like there's parts of the secret NASA, you might say, that went really dark, and there's other parts that are going really light, so it's really mixed. It's just a real mixed bag right now.
Mm-hmm. We just had an expo this past April, and we just started posting some of the pictures of them. And there was this picture that we just posted that was just our core expo team, and we're standing up against a black curtain, and there are all these orbs that are showing up on the picture. And Dr. Sam Osmanagic was at the expo as well, and he was showing pictures of that were taken in the Bosnian pyramids, and actually video footage of all these orbs just come pouring down the different. Have you ever seen his presentation?
Have ever seen Dr. Sam's? How do you say his last name? I always pronounce it wrong.
Osmanagic.
Osmanagic. Okay, yeah, I've talked to him before. I've had some long conversations with him. I had him on my show a couple of times, and he's right on with what he's doing. I've seen some of that, and we have that at the ranch too. With our technology, the whole field just fills up wall-to-wall orbs, and people just this last couple of weeks have got some amazing pictures of just massive gold orbs, higher dimensional ships that are out of phase. We got pictures of those, and just wall-to-wall orbs there interacting with people. And with the infrared spotlight and the night vision goggles, we have it on real time where the orbs are just flying right in your face and interacting with you and playing with you and things like that. So that's always fun.
What do you think the orbs are exactly? Or is that extraterrestrial consciousness interacting from another dimension, or are they spirit guides, or do you have any theory on that?
All the above. They're beings without bodies. Research we've done on the orbs is that when we open up and blow them up, and look into them, some have extreme geometric patterns to them. Some of them have faces, like we've seen animal faces like deer and bear and all kinds of things. And then some are human faces. Some are faces that would be either alien or elfin looking, really bizarre, long ears, everything, on them. We've seen faces of masters and bearded masters, you might say, on these big gold orbs. And, we have one orb that looks like Mary. It looks like Mother Mary when you blow it up, and she's got a shawl over her head and everything. But to me, they're just beings that are operating from a higher dimension. They're just non-physical beings. They don't have a physical body, and one of the highest levels that we eventually will become, if we move up the vibration continuum, we lose less form, and eventually we move into an orb where we have 360-degree vision, and we can go anywhere we want instantly, and it's really a much better form of existence, you might say. It's a much higher form.
So you've taken these pictures and footage and you've enhanced them with some kind of equipment to see this?
Yeah. Basically, we just either lighten them up or blow them up, and you really cleared. They have faces. And
so, what are the animal faces about? Are they spirit guides that are appearing as animals, or are they? What do you think those are?
They're just the spirits of animals. I mean, animals have souls too, and they're just animal spirits, that are cruising around and hanging out, along with all the other discarnates or something.
Now, do you think that these are appearing everywhere, around everyone, or it's just depending on the consciousness of the person or the environment, or whether it's a vortex? Or, as I'm curious, why do I see the orbs on pictures like the picture I just mentioned, but I don't see it on all of them?
Well, there are certain places. I know the orbs are really attracted to places like events where people are having fun, and they're very attracted to kids and feminine energy. I find out that we've had experiences where if people get into the masculine, rooster competition program, the orbs leave. They just disappear, gone. And it takes the children or some defined feminine energy to bring them back, into the area. So there's certain areas where there are power spots or ley lines cross or things like that, and they're just like our place, and the orbs are just everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier about all the internet chatter that I've been hearing about major changes coming up this fall, and there are two interesting eclipses this September and one the following March that have some similarity even to the one that we had this past March, and so it seems to me that there probably are going to be a lot of significant things happening in the world or in the awakening of consciousness between now and March and end of March. Do you have any perception on that? Are you seeing anything or hearing anything from your sources as to something concrete that's really going to take place in that time?
Definitely we're getting insights into that. My problem lately is I've been so busy doing the other process-oriented therapies and clearing work and the conferences and everything else. I haven't had a chance to go into the future and start looking at some things, but that's on the docket. I need to really do that and start. A lot of times Baba G calls me future boy. He tells me to stop doing that. But I like to get a glimpse into what's happening. But I'm definitely going to start asking questions. And I don't know if your listeners or somebody have some questions they want to ask, specific questions we can ask the higher dimensional beings and see what they have to say about it. That might be a good show later or something. But yeah, I definitely need to put more time into that. I just haven't. I noticed when I was down in the big in October, can't remember what year that was. Was it 86 or something like that? I'm not sure. When they had the big earthquake in San Francisco, I think it was 89. Yeah, they had the big one. I went and I went on record and I told them the exact time and date and the size of it, and everything was accurate. Only thing is they bumped it up afterwards and they said it was 7.1, but I said 6.9 and gave the date and time of that one. And then I gave the Seattle quake and I went on Jim Birkeland's site and registered that and said, yeah. And, he goes, good one. How'd you do it? It's kind of funny, but I think things are in such flux right now. It's really hard to nail things down, but I'm going to give it a go and see if I can find out, when these shifts are going to happen. But they have told me some things about, a lot of things about the global reset and all the other stuff, and events, that a lot of people thought were going to happen about a year ago. And they were telling me the whole time, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to happen in this many months. And so now we hit the, right now we're in that time period where everything, is set and it is done, and now it needs to start moving forward. But and the sources I talked to said, yeah, they said, well, we thought we'd have it done by this time and this time, but they had a lot of resistance and a lot of problems, but they said now it's all set, everything's in place, and it's going to be going forward. But they have been real accurate about that, and so I've been planning on that, because people go, oh, you're going to fly out here, we're going to take you here, we're going to do that, and my spirit's going, nope, not going to happen. It's not time yet. And so I learned to listen to that, and they've been real accurate on those levels.
So when you forecasted these earthquakes way back in '89, you were communicating with Babaji or just some?
No, well, one of them, Babaji, was the Kumbh Mela. They invited me to come for that big quake over there in India, and I would have landed right in the middle of it. And he came in and told me not to go, that it would be a mess, and I'd ended up right in the middle. He didn't give me the exact details, but he'd tell me, definitely not to go. And I had this Yogi Shanti who's since crossed over, but he was had all these connections with him to meet with really important people, and it was all set up. And when I told him, Babaji told me no. He said, you have to listen to that, if he's telling you no. And so he was really good about it. But it's different masters come in. I have a being I work with named Tasamara. He's a very ancient one that comes in, and he's been very accurate on things, but I have to ask the questions. He doesn't come in and say this and this and this is going to happen. I have to have the questions and ask, and then they tell me. But I just haven't been asking the questions lately. I've just been kind of taking it a day at a time, as it unfolds.
Mm. So what exactly are you doing? Are you clairaudient, or are you channeling, or clairvoyant, or how's that information coming to you?
All the above. It's all going on. It's I hear it, I see them. It's they feed me the information. There's like downloads that come in. A whole lot of energy and information comes in at once, and there's so many different avenues that are unfolding here. It's hard to pigeonhole which one.
So have you ever done a show where you've actually been asked questions and you've been asking these questions, getting the answers?
Yeah, I have. I did one actually on Jeff Ren's. They started kind of grilling me and say, okay, well, when's the next major earth change going to happen? And I said, well, in our area, I can tell you, like Mount Hood is going to start shaking and rumbling, and I said that's the next event in our area like this. And the next day, Mount Hood had 45 quakes.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't know how this comes. It just comes to me, and I say it. And after I say it, I go, "Oh my God, I stuck my neck out there." And then it happens. It actually does happen. I don't even know where it comes from, but it's kind of spontaneous, when it comes out.
So if I were to ask you a question now to ask, you can't really direct that. You have to be in a certain state or spontaneity, or.
Yeah, it just depends. If it's supposed to come out, it comes out. But it's better. Because I like to, when I get information, I like to check and double check it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it concerns a lot of people. I basically got run out of town in Santa Cruz when I told them that big quake was going to happen. I went to the Unity Church and I went to all these spiritual groups and I said, hey, we're going to have a big quake. And, it's really soon. It's in the next 2 weeks and things like that. And they basically got really upset with me and they said, you're creating it, you're teaching fear and you're all this other stuff. And I go, well, thanks for all the power, but I said, I'm not creating it. I just saw it. And they said, well, you should leave, and it was just a mess. And then after it hit, you'd think there'd be a little humility, but it wasn't. They go, they came back to me. They go, well, you created it. You told all these people. And I just go, oh my God, I said, so it's like a no-win situation. And then if you give 10 right ones and miss one, everybody remembers the one you missed, and then call you a fraud and everything else. So I don't know. I try to stay out of that program as much as possible, just because there's no benefit in it,
I see. Well, I mean, I'm kind of curious what your guides would say as to what and I ask this because a lot of people ask me this, and like I said earlier on in our conversation, there are a lot of light workers who've been really struggling, especially in the last 6 months or so, right? And so we get asked this question a lot: what's this about? How long is it going to last? Is it going to feel any better anytime soon? And
the cavalry's here. The cavalry's here. They're taking a proactive stance now. They're really taking the gloves off, and so things are going to happen very quickly. There's other elements that are still out there that are trying to thwart, the shift and the awakening healing process that they're getting under control. They're very busy, in that program. But yeah, it's definitely unfolding. The good news is hang in there. Just stick it out. Because it is the old program's collapsing and a whole new one is going to be taking its place. Mm-hmm. But I definitely see that, and they've been telling me a lot about California. Just some real heads up that it's going to be really rough on California in that area, the next couple of years. And with the water situation, the fires, all that stuff, they've been talking about that for a long time, even before all the San Diego fires and all the other things happened. So they're going to have a rough go of it, that area. There's a couple other areas, the East Coast too is not doing too well.
Why that particular area? I mean, there's also the whole mandatory vaccination thing going on.
Yeah, everything down there. It's just like the tyranny down there, and it's just going to be a lot of chaos because the people are figuring it out. They're waking up, and the tyranny's rising up, and it's going to be a major point where, the geoengineering, all that stuff is all being exposed down there, and it's just it's all coming to a head down there, and so. It'd be interesting how that fares out. And there's also a lot of shaking going to be going on. There's going to be a lot more, quakes and things like that happening down there, and some water movement. So,
mm-hmm. So obviously you're making some adjustments and going in some different directions in your own work. And so do you have any programs or conferences or anything coming up in the near future over there?
Yeah, we do. We have Winston Stroud is returning. We have Laura Eisenhower. She's coming out, and Dr. Dream. We have Itasha, or Tashina is what she goes by, and she's an Apache wisdom keeper. And I'm going to team up with her and do a ambassador training program. And she's totally plugged into the Arcturian energies and amazing woman. they actually come right down, descend on you, and you feel their energy, and the whole room chills down, and it's amazing when they come in. But I've had some amazing experiences with her. So we have a lot on the program there. If people go to private invitation, ECETI.com, they can get all that information of the upcoming events. And, or just go to the website, ECETI, and ECETI.org, and that'll direct you there.
Now, the Arcturians, are they just multidimensional, or do they actually take physical form, and what do they look like if they do?
Well, the ones I've seen were 6-dimensional. They're very tall, very thin beings. They look like us. They're very humanoid. And it's the same with the Pleiadians and the Orion Council of Light. Some of those guys are a little taller than us. They're more genetically refined. They're very spiritually advanced. The most ones that I've been working with are the ones that are our ancestors, basically, that are returning. But I have seen the other groups. And some are quite interesting looking. There's actually humanoid feline beings that are coming into play, and they've played a part of our history in the past. In India, they know about them. They call them Narisha and Nashringa, and in Egypt, they call them Sekhmet. But they're feline humanoid beings that walked right alongside the pharaohs, and they were the protectors of the gods. But those are starting to come back and into play. So there's a lot going on. It's going to get real interesting here.
Now, I'm sure you've heard of the Star Child skull, right?
Yes.
What race is that? Do you know?
That looks like a gray. I think what that was is a hybrid, and I think its mother was human and its father was a gray, or some kind of a hybrid situation going on there. But and there's a lot of that going on. But that's going to turn out good in the long run, because you've got beings that are super brilliant and they're very advanced, but they're part human too. So they have an allegiance to both worlds. And that'll be a bridge, that happens there eventually in the long run. So there's some really good things unfolding. It's happening really fast. And the good news too is the benevolent Anunnaki, the Council of 12 that maintained universal law, have returned. And there's a big recall going on, and they're calling in the ones that fell, that broke, went against universal law, and they're so there's a big they're having to stand before the councils, which is pretty embarrassing, and go over what they've done. So that's good news. And they're actually teaming up with the Pleiadians, the Orion Council of Light, and the Andromedans, and they're doing a major house cleaning, of the fallen ones that have been running rampant here on the planet over the past few centuries, or even longer.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly a very exciting time we're living in. Lots of, it's always very interesting talking to you and all the cool things going on over there at ECETI. I'll have to make my way out there one of these days. But thank you again for taking time to speak with me and with our audience. And hopefully we'll have you out here very soon.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep you informed the more we find out. And I will look into if I can see what they want to talk about future events. Sometimes they don't want to let the cat out of the bag, because they don't want to let the other side know what, what they're doing or what's going to happen. So we'll see what they have to say.
Okay. That'll be great to talk about that in the future.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on the show.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Awaken Empowered TV with my special guest, James Gilliland. Join us next week as we explore the global revolution in consciousness and those individuals who are on the leading edge and changing the world.